Alright, this is my third time trying to do this video, so this time I'm sure I'm going to get it right. So here we go. This is what I think your concept is. So you have an empty space here for the bearing, and then you have these little embellishments, the little dots on the top here. Then you have these chopsticks, which I imagine in between the chopsticks there's empty space. And so those chopsticks are holding the outer ring in place, connected to the inner ring. Then on the outer ring you're going to place some text, and then so that's the general concept. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing over to the side over here. I'm going to start with just a regular circle, and the size of the bearing is a total of 23 millimeters, so half of that is 11.5. That's for the radius. And then I would recommend that the outer barrier, so the thickness in between these two, is at least 3 millimeters. So I'm going to do 3.5. So that means the radius would be 15 even. So 15. And I'm going to make a line to the center point, just out, just so it's easier to find the center point later. I want everything to be kind of centered on this point, so I'm going to leave that there for now. And now I'm going to delete this little area here if I can. Let me just select it and then delete. So I selected it, clicking on it, and then pressed the delete on the keyboard to get rid of that. So here's my basic ring, and I'm just going to go ahead and make this ring a solid. So I need to extrude it, and I'm going to do it the thickness of the bearing, or the height, whatever you want to call it, which is going to be 7 millimeters, so just 7, enter. So here I have my first three-dimensional object, and what I would recommend is every time you make an object, go ahead and make it a group or a component. Either way, it will make it a solid. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, minus this line, because this is not a solid. You can't have a line as part of a solid. So I'm going to deselect that by hitting the shift key and then clicking on the line. So that's selected, and then I'm going to deselect it by clicking on it again. Now I'm going to right click this and make it a component. Alright, so now I'm going to check to verify that it's a solid by clicking on this thing here, which is called entity info, and it says solid component, which is what you want. So anything that you're going to print has to be a solid component, or else it will not print. So every time we make a solid or model a 3D object, we're going to make it a component. That way it stays a solid. And you can combine solids together, but they have to be solids first. So we have that. So these little dots here, I'm going to assume that you wanted them pretty evenly spaced out. So I'm going to do this with some planning and actually space them out equally. The easiest way to do that is to use a 12-sided polygon. I'm thinking there's like 12 dots here. I'm just guessing. So you determine how many you want. I'm going to use 12. So in order to do that, I have a center point here, which is going to be helpful. And let's go ahead and make another one if I can. I'm just going to draw a couple lines. That's going to help here. So I drew a line straight up from that one. See that? And I'm going to draw a line straight over to the center point up here. That way, whatever I do on the bottom, I can also do to the top. Because I have a center point here and I have a center point down here. So what I'm going to do next is create a polygon. So that's found where the circle tool is. It's right here. And you determine how many sides. It tells you down here. use Control plus or Control minus to change the number of segments. So I already had done this video before, so it's already set to 12, but I'm going to show you by doing Control minus. It's down to 6 sides now, 5 sides. So I'm holding Control and doing minus to decrease the number of sides, and then Control and the plus symbol to increase to 12 sides. And I'll go ahead and do this on the top. So that's the easiest right now. So I'm going to click on the endpoint, and I'm going to follow the red axis out. Oh, that's one thing I forgot to do. So I want to make this as straight as possible, or even in between these 2 points. So first thing we're going to do is draw a line. I'm going to draw a line from this end point over to this end point. So now I have a midpoint right here. So now when I draw my polygon, I can click here and then go out to that midpoint. It'll be perfect in between these two. Alright, so because this is a shape, a closed shape, it's filling in the center. I don't need that. So before I go any further, I'm just going to click this and delete. I don't need that surface. I'm just using this as a guide to know where to place my circles. Alright, so now we're going to draw circles at each of these points. So I'm going to click here, and 1 millimeter is pretty good. That's a radius, so there'll be a total of 2 millimeters. So let's do 1. Or if you want it bigger, you could do 1.5. Let's do 1.5. So if you keep running into it making this surface, we can just give in to that and let it stay there for now. So I'm going to go ahead and draw 1.5 circles all the way around. A few more to go. It's being helpful and remembering the last measurement, kind of snapping to that point. So alright, so we've got a lot of lines here that we don't need, and we have a lot of circles that we do need. So I'm going to try to get rid of the surface that we don't need and the lines that we don't need. So I'm going to select this inner surface and press delete to get rid of that. And now I'm going to try to get rid of all these extra lines here. So just use the erase tool. Alright, now I want to push-pull these. I want to push-pull them probably, I'm going to guess 1 millimeter should be good enough. I can reference the other edge to make it a little bit faster. So I'm pulling them up to be equal to the other shapes here. There we go. Alright, so now I should have 12 individual shapes. These are not solids yet, so if I click on one of these, this is just a face. It's not a solid. So I need to make these little individual thingies solids. So to do that a little bit more easily, I'm going to actually move this object out of the way temporarily, because it'd be very hard to select each of these little guys one at a time. So I'm going to move this out of the way. So I'm going to use the move tool. I'm going to grab it from the center point and then just move it back. So to 50 millimeters on the red axis. That's really important. Actually, let me escape. You can grab it anywhere as long as you know on which axis and how far you move it away, then you can move it right back. So I'm going to click it here on the red axis. I'm going to move it 50 millimeters away, so just 50, enter. So now I'm left with these little circles. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to select all of them, make it a component, and see if it's a solid. So I'm going to deselect that guy, select all of these, minus the lines. So I'm going to get rid of these in the selection. And I'm going to right click and make a component. So this is a solid component. So all of these are enclosed spaces. So it considers that a solid, which is great. So now I have a component that I can use on both the top and the bottom. So we're going to combine these together and make one solid. So I'm going to, let's go ahead and, what I like to do is make copies of stuff. So it may be a little bit extra work, but this will make sense in a little bit. So I already moved this guy over. Oh wait, let's deselect. I want to move this guy back. So that was 50 millimeters, so 50, enter. So what I'm going to do is copy everything so far. That way if I need to work on these things individually, I have these as a copy. So I'm going to select everything I have so far, then choose the move tool and control to copy. And I'm just going to copy this over. Let's go 50, enter. Alright, so I know I have a copy. So now I'm going to start working on this over here. So what I want to do is duplicate this thing on the bottom. So this is a millimeter thick. So if I move this down 7, it's going to be placed right at the bottom. So let's go ahead and move it down 7 and see what happens. So I'm going to grab it anywhere. Make sure I'm on the blue axis, so I'm going straight down. And if you want to lock it to that, you can hold the shift key down and then it locks it to that axis. And I'm going to move it down 7. Whoops. Let's just make sure it's on the blue axis. Let's do 7, enter. See how it's even? The surfaces are even, so it's not sticking out. That's because the bottom moved to match the bottom of this. So I want to move it down an additional millimeter to be sticking out a millimeter. And what I did is I moved instead of copied it, so that's another mistake. So let's just go back. Now we know we want to move it 8 millimeters and we want to copy it. So let's do control, so we're in copy mode. Click it anywhere. On the blue axis, we're moving it down by 8 millimeters. Alright, now I'm going to move to my select tool and just make sure everything is a solid. So I have this is a solid. I have this, which is also a solid. And I have this, which is also a solid. So what I'm going to do now is merge solids together to make all one solid. So the solid editing tools are found right here. And the first two are ones that combine solids. One is the outer shell and the other is union. Either one should work on these. So I'm going to use outer shell. I'm going to select this guy first and try to attach it to this one. Now it should say solid. Is a solid group. Now I'm going to combine this solid group with the bottom circles. And now I'm going to just switch to the select tool to make sure when I select it, it is a solid. So all of this so far is printable. It's a success. So good. So we're going to move on to now the chopsticks. And these are kind of, in my opinion, just random shapes. So I'm just going to randomize them as well. Actually, I'll just go ahead and use your shape. How about that? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a little bit more symmetrical in my placement. So I'm going to move it from a specific spot and then attach it. So if you think about it, what you have going on here is a square pattern. So there's 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those 4 points coincide with where your chopsticks are connected and also where your words are. So you've kind of divided it into 4 spaces. So I'm going to use a square to kind of make things symmetrical. So I'm going to start with a square, and let's go ahead and go here. Actually, instead of using a square, let's go ahead and do a polygon with 4 sides. So that would be a square that's equally spaced, so it's a perfect square. All sides are equal. And from the center point. So this is going to help us. Actually, first of all, I'm going to reference your drawing real quick. So first thing I want is a snapping point somewhere on the outside of the circle. And then I'm going to need a snapping point. Actually, I don't. I just need a snapping point on the outsides of the circles. Let's try that first. So I'm going to go reduce my number of sides to 4 by Control minus. There we go. Now I can draw this from the center out to one of the edges. So since I'm drawing on the bottom, I'm going to go down here and snap it right here. Actually, I want it on the outside. That's right. So to the outside, I'm going to snap this. So now what I'm going to use this for is a snapping point for my chopsticks. So I'm going to go over here and grab a chopstick. And it's already selected, but I'm going to go ahead and just make sure by clicking on it. And I want to grab it. Let's go ahead and copy. So I'm going to Control to copy, so we're going to leave this one in place. I'm going to grab it by the corner. then I'm going to place it at the corner of my square over here. Alright, so I'm just doing a little bit of modeling right now, so I'm going to leave it right there for now. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy. So let me go ahead and select it first. And we're going to use this tool and copy. So I'm going to do Control, copy it from here, and just place it over here somewhere. Now I want to rotate this one. So I'm going to go to the rotate tool, click on the corner, choose any side to grab it by, and I want to rotate it 90 degrees. Now I'm going to place this one. Actually, go ahead and copy another one. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Control, copy from there, place it about right here. I'm going to rotate that one as well. From here, grab another spot over here. Oops, I didn't click the end point. So I click here, along this line. Then we're going to go another 90 degrees. So it should snap to 90 degrees. Or you could type it in if you want to. So I need to do one more chopstick. So I'm going to copy this one again. Control, copy, place it somewhere. Then I need to rotate it. Rotate. Grab any corner, click the opposite line, and then rotate it 90 degrees. So now I just need to place these where they're supposed to go. So I'm going to use the Move tool. This was the last one I did, so I'm going to go ahead and grab this one from this corner, place it over here. Right here at the corner. So I got two in place. I'm going to go ahead and move this one from this corner if I can get there. I'll go ahead and select it first. Then move from this corner over to this corner. And then I'm going to grab the last one, this corner, and then snap it to this corner. Alright, I'm going to orbit just to see what this looks like. Okay, so now that we have them placed in the general vicinity that you want them to, and it's very symmetrical. If you want to move them slightly in towards the circle, you can just click on it and follow the axis. So this is on the green axis. So just make sure that you're on the green axis and the direction that you want to travel. So even though it's way over here, let's see, I want to move it in, let's say 3 millimeters. So I'm going to type 3 and then enter. So I'm going to do the opposite to this, go the opposite direction, 3 on the green axis. Then I'm going to be moving these on the red axis. 3, enter. Then 3, enter. So now they're all kind of embedded in there. so now I'm going to assume that maybe you want a double layer. I don't think you want these chopsticks to be 7 millimeters tall. So let me go ahead and do some measurements here just to see what we got going on. That's 0.7 millimeters. I'm hoping these are thick enough to hold together your structure. Maybe should have talked about that earlier. I'm going to actually scale these up. So if I can, let me go ahead and go back a few steps. Okay. So what I want to do is scale these up. Let's go ahead and select all of them. And then I want to scale them up. I want this one. Sorry, I clicked the wrong tool. Scale. And I'm going to go uniform scale. And let's increase to 1.5. Let's see how large that is now. 0.7 there. Didn't get much bigger. 0.9 is better. A millimeter is really small, so I'm a little concerned that these might be too small to hold everything together. But I don't want to lose that chopstick feel, so I might go a little bit larger. Let's undo that. So total scale, let's try to go 2. It's going to be really large. So now I can measure here to here. 1.36 millimeters. That's much better. I don't know if this is going to change your design much. We might just need to stick them in farther, but we'll see. At least you get the concept. So now I'm going to place them. Got to move them all around. There we go. I'm just going to leave it orbited underneath so we can see better. So this is making this very large. So I'm going to need to bring these in quite a bit. So we were moving them in along the axis point. So I'm going to move this in about that far. That's 6.63. Let's try 7 and see what happens. That looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and move the rest of these. Seven. Alright, so now we're back to where we were before. I'm going to measure real quick just to see how far we're getting off center. 31. Okay, we're not too bad actually. 45 millimeters. 40 millimeters. Okay, so I might have to cut these off about right here with your outer ring. So we're running out of space. I'm going to move this over a little bit more. Let's move all this stuff so far we got. Move it over an additional 50. Alright, so now we're going to edit a component and we're going to change the, we're going to push pull it up. See what kind of thickness we like. I'm going to say 1.5 millimeters. Looks good. And we're going to select it just to see if this is, no, it's a solid component. That's good. So we're working with solid still. And what I was thinking is, I wasn't sure about this, but if you wanted to do a layer on the bottom and a layer on the top, so you have chopsticks, you know, on top and bottom, that would add more structure. Then you could just copy these up. So we're going to go ahead and select them first. And use the move tool but in the copy mode. And copy them up on the Z. And let's do 7. So 7 puts them right on the top. So I want them embedded. So we extruded them 1.5 up. So we're going to subtract 1.5 from 7, which would be 5.5. So I wanted to copy it 5.5 up. So in copy mode, click anywhere, make sure you're on the blue axis, and type 5.5, enter. Okay, so let's orbit just to see what we got going on here. So far, so good. We're going to hit pause on this video and have a part 2 for the rest of it.